Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. I wasn't supposed to be home that early. I'd left work 2 hours into my shift because the new caregiver watching my sister hadn't answered a single one of my texts all morning. I had this sick feeling in my stomach. I walked through the front door quietly, too quietly, and that's when I heard him. I mean, what do you want me to do? She's not even going to notice the difference. It's not like she knows what's going on half the time anyway. It was my husband, Brett. His voice was low, annoyed. I stopped cold in the hallway. Another voice, maybe on speakerphone, said something muffled, probably questioning him. She needed a new water heater, Brett said, sharper this time. What, am I supposed to let the pipes freeze while her sister drools on a pillow? My face went hot. For a second, I couldn't even breathe. That her he was talking about? That was me. And she? That was Rachel, my younger sister. My disabled sister, the one I'd spent the last 10 years protecting after a car crash left her with permanent brain damage. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? I stood there, fists clenched, barely hearing the rest. When he finally hung up, I walked straight into the living room. He jumped when he saw me. Jesus, Em, how long have you been standing there? Long enough. You want to tell me what you did? He blinked fast, scrambled. It's not what it sounded like. So, explain it. Right now, he scratched the back of his neck like he always does when he's lying. Okay, listen. I borrowed from the care fund, yeah, but I had to. The heater was leaking, and the whole basement could have flooded. I was going to put it back next paycheck. Brett, that fund is locked. You needed my approval to access it. How'd you even get in? I may have guessed your password. It hit like a slap. I walked out without another word, straight to Rachel's place. The door was unlocked. Inside smelled like spoiled milk. Rachel was slouched in her chair, tray of half-eaten food on her lap, TV blaring some old sitcom. Her shirt was stained, her hair hadn't been brushed. I turned toward the kitchen. The girl, Alyssa, was sitting on her phone, scrolling like she was on break at a mall kiosk. You're done, I snapped. Get your stuff and go. She tried to argue. I didn't listen. I cleaned Rachel up myself, washed her hair in the sink, changed her clothes, set her up in her favorite blanket. Every part of me was boiling. And Brett, he had no idea what was coming. I let 2 days go by, just long enough to cool down, pretend I was thinking things through. Brett tried to apologize, twice. I told him I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. He bought flowers. I threw them out when he wasn't looking. On the third day, I told him I wanted to talk to his dad. Just to understand the bigger picture, I said, keeping my tone even. He nodded, relieved. Idiot. His father lived 10 minutes away in a tan stucco ranch house with a dead lawn and a flagpole that leaned like it gave up. I brought a pie. Played the sweet daughter-in-law. He loved that. Come on in, Emmy, he said, waving me through. I was just watching the game. You want a beer? I shook my head and followed him into the kitchen. His TV blared from the next room, but I could hear him fine. I wanted to ask you something, I said. Brett mentioned you helped us out a few months ago. I just wanted to say thank you. Oh, yeah, he said, perking up. That was a pretty big loan. Not every day your son calls you needing 50 grand, right? I blinked. 50? He nodded proudly. Said he had a real shot at getting in on some startup deal. Something with software and real estate. Hell, I don't know. I just told him, if you believe in it, go all in. I stared at the salt shaker like it was gonna give me answers. He told me it was for medical bills. For Rachel, his face went pale. Oh, shit. Emmy, I thought you knew? It's fine, I said, standing. I appreciate you telling me. Don't tell him I said anything, all right? He asked, his voice lower. He'll feel like I undermined him. I smiled. Of course, this stays between us. That night, I texted Logan, Brett's best friend since college, told him I needed to vent and asked if he wanted to grab drinks. He jumped on it like a dog on a steak. We met at a bar near downtown, one of those overpriced spots with Edison bulbs and $14 cocktails. He ordered a bourbon and talked the entire first round. Man, Brett's living like a king lately, he said, grinning. New watch, new truck, business class flights. I don't know what kind of deal he landed, but damn. I sipped my drink. He told me he's been under a lot of stress. Logan laughed. Stress? He just got back from Cabo with those crypto guys. You seen the pool at that resort? Insane, I tilted my head. He said it was a work trip. Sure, yeah, work and tequila shots. But hey, if it works, it works. So, what exactly is he doing now? I asked. Logan scratched his chin. Real estate development, I think, or something with commercial properties. Last time we talked, he was hyped about buying into a warehouse thing. I nodded like it made sense. Weird. He told me he was starting a tech consultancy. Logan shrugged. Maybe both? Or maybe he's just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. You know how he is. All charm, no plan. I finished my drink and didn't order another. I'd heard enough. On the drive home, I kept the music off. I wasn't sad. I wasn't confused. I was building something, one lie at a time. The next morning, I waited for Brett to leave for work. Watched from the window as he backed his shiny new Silverado out of the driveway, talking on Bluetooth like he was some hotshot CEO. Once he was gone, I grabbed coffee, locked the front door, and pulled out my old laptop from college. The one he didn't know I still used. I wasn't on our joint Wi-Fi. I tethered through my phone, used a VPN, and logged in from a burner email I'd set up the night before. I'd worked admin at a hospital for 6 years. I knew how to dig without leaving fingerprints. First stop was the shared care account I'd opened in my name. My name. I used that fund strictly for Rachel's needs. Therapy, equipment, transportation, private care. But Brett had guessed my password once. I changed it after the water heater excuse, but I hadn't gone back to check the damage. I pulled up the statements and felt my stomach twist. Withdrawals had started 5 months ago. Not huge at first. A couple hundred here, 300 there, but then they got bold. 2,000 on contractor fees, 1,500 for private medical transport, 1,200 for home safety upgrades. Every single one of those was a lie. I opened a second tab and logged into our joint bank. Then his personal account. He never bothered with two-factor authentication, too impatient. Inside, it was a mess. Thousands spent at casinos in Vegas and Atlantic City, online sports betting platforms, 3 payments labeled crypto buy, a Rolex boutique in Chicago, designer shoes from some Italian brand I couldn't pronounce. Then I saw it. Deposits from the care account disguised as vendor reimbursements, hitting his personal account. He'd been stealing from my sister, laundering it through fake charges, then cashing it out like he earned it. I slammed the laptop shut and walked into the bathroom before I threw up. I sat on the cold tile, hands shaking against my mouth. After 10 minutes, I got back up. I wasn't done. I opened Rachel's caregiver contracts. We used a private agency, supposed to vet every hire, train them, handle background checks. But the last 4 girls, hired under a new sub-agency Brett recommended. I checked their names. 2 had criminal records. 1 had been fired from elder care for neglect. The one I'd fired last week wasn't even certified. He was hiring the cheapest options, pocketing the extra, and hoping I wouldn't notice. I grabbed a notebook and started writing down dates, amounts, names. I printed screenshots, highlighted matching transactions, compared it all to Rachel's health logs. Her weight had dropped 6 pounds over the last 3 months. She'd been missing therapy sessions. Her skin looked worse. She'd developed a rash on her back that no one reported. He didn't just steal money. He stole her health, her safety, her dignity. I sat there staring at the numbers. I thought about the night of the accident, when I got the call, when the doctor told me my 19-year-old sister had the brain function of a child, when mom and dad checked out emotionally, and it was me who took the responsibility. I swore that night I'd never let anyone hurt her again. And now, the man I married, the one who said he loved her like family, was the one doing it. I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Insurance. I wasn't calling the police. Not yet. I wasn't tipping him off. I was going to get everything first. Then I'd burn him to the ground. I worked in silence for 3 straight nights. No music, no distractions. Just the sound of my fingers pounding the keyboard and the occasional boiling over curse under my breath. I dumped everything into that folder. Insurance. Labeled, dated, sorted. Financial statements from our joint accounts. Every charge I could trace back to his gambling, his trips, his online crypto buys. I took screenshots of his personal account transfers. Every one that matched a fake caregiver invoice or a fake maintenance expense. Then I went through the caregiver receipts line by line. Brett had submitted dozens to our family budget folder in the cloud. All marked, paid. I cross-checked every name. Most didn't match the staff assigned by the agency. I emailed the agency directly pretending to confirm upcoming shifts. 3 of the names he'd used, not even in their system. One of them was dead. No joke. I Googled her and found her obituary. She'd passed away in June. I added that screenshot too. By the fourth night, I'd found two secret credit cards. One under a business name, ClearPath Holdings, LLC. Never heard of it. But the billing address was our house, and the charges matched his travel schedule. First-class flights, luxury hotels, expensive dinners. Another card was just in his name, opened with a Yahoo email I didn't recognize. I logged into the online statements. 6 months of charges, payments to consultants, random deposits, then immediate withdrawals at ATMS. The same pattern over and over. Take the money, move it, vanish it. That's when it clicked. I'd seen this exact structure once before, back at the hospital. A vendor got caught submitting fake invoices under a shell company. They'd used a nearly identical cycle. Fake expenses, reimbursements, shell accounts, poof, gone. I even remembered the vendor's name. I went back to the fired caregiver's file, Alyssa. She'd listed a former employer called Vantage Wellness. I searched it online. The website looked real at first. Basic stock photos, fake testimonials. But when I clicked the address, it bounced back to a virtual mailbox in Nevada. And listed under the company registration, ClearPath Holdings, LLC. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding in my throat. I knew someone who'd know exactly what to do with this. Her name was Denise Clark, a legal consultant I used to work with when I handled compliance paperwork. Smart, quiet, sharp as hell, still owed me a favor. I called her that afternoon, told her I needed a discreet look into a company, background check, ownership, legal history. She didn't ask why, just said, text me the name and any documents. I'll get back to you in 2 days. She called back the next night. Emily, you were right to ask. The holding company is a front, registered to 3 other fake businesses in 4 different states. One of them was investigated for Medicaid fraud 2 years ago. My spine locked up. And Brett? Listed as the managing officer on 2 of them, she said. I triple-checked. His signature's on a formation document in Florida. There's also a recorded phone call from that fraud case. He wasn't charged, but he was involved. My throat went dry. Jesus Christ. I can't advise you formally, Denise said, but you've got something. Keep documenting everything. And stay quiet, I thanked her. Hung up, then sat there staring at the wall like the air had been knocked out of me. Brett wasn't just lying. He was a predator. He'd done this before. And now he was doing it to Rachel, to me, using our money, our trust, and turning it into his personal slush fund. I saved every file to an encrypted USB drive and made 2 backup copies. One went to my office, the other to my sister's safety deposit box. Now I had proof, not just that he stole, but that he knew exactly what he was doing. Brett walked into the kitchen one morning grinning like he'd just won the lottery. All right, he said, slapping a brochure on the counter. 10th anniversary, big deal. I booked the Halston for the party. Full dinner, bar, maybe even live music. I want it to be a night to remember. I glanced down at the glossy photo of the ballroom. Chandeliers, marble floors, the kind of place people go to show off, not celebrate. I looked back up at him. You're planning it? Yeah, he said, puffing up. I already made the down payment. My treat, I smiled, just enough to keep the game going. That's generous. Inside, my stomach flipped. He'd just handed me the stage I needed. 1 room, all his friends, coworkers, his father, everyone who still thought he walked on water. I'd already booked a private caregiver for Rachel weeks out, just in case I needed to make moves fast. But now I switched plans. I called my friend Denise, not the lawyer, a different one, a woman I trusted with my life. She was a former RN, stayed home now to care for her own brother. I asked if she'd be willing to spend the night with Rachel during the party. No problem, she said. You going somewhere? Not far. Just taking care of something overdue. That afternoon, I made an appointment with my lawyer, Daniel Park. He was sharp and unshakable, the kind of guy who read contracts like they were short stories and didn't blink at messy divorces. He greeted me with a calm nod and waved me into his office. I handed him the USB drive. Everything's on there. Financials, background checks, bank records, company filings. He plugged it in, clicked through a few folders, and whistled low. Jesus, this is detailed. I sat down across from him. Can we go after him for damages? Yes, he said immediately. This qualifies as marital fraud, financial exploitation, possibly civil racketeering if we tie it to his previous activities. Will it hold? He nodded slowly. It'll be hard to refute. Especially with the corporate trail you built, But once you go public, it moves fast. Divorce, lawsuits, criminal charges. You ready for that? I don't need clean, I said. I need done. He closed the folder and leaned forward. You know this could ruin him completely. That's the idea. Daniel agreed to draft the complaint and prep for divorce. We discussed timing, how best to serve him, and how to preserve the integrity of the evidence. He asked when I wanted to drop the hammer. 10 days, I said. On our anniversary, I walked out of his office with everything I needed. The final scene was set. I went home and acted like nothing had changed. Let Brett talk about menu options and how many champagne bottles to order. He joked about booking a string quartet. I smiled and nodded like a good wife. But in my head, I was rehearsing. Not a toast, not a thank you speech. I was planning his public execution, the moment his mask would shatter, and the world would see exactly what kind of man he really was. The Halston looked like a wedding venue out of a catalog, all crystal lights and polished floors, with waiters in black vests moving like shadows through the crowd. I walked in wearing a plain black dress I'd pulled from the back of my closet. No sequins, no heels, no fake glamour. I didn't need to compete. I wasn't there to impress. Brett, on the other hand, had gone full showman. He wore a navy-tailored suit with a gold tie and cufflinks that probably cost more than the entire catering bill. He held a champagne flute in one hand and had his arm draped around his dad, guiding him through the room like he was royalty. Happy anniversary, babe, he said, kissing my cheek. Place looks amazing, right? Beautiful, I said, giving him the smile I'd practiced in the mirror. Guests poured in, coworkers, friends, people I hadn't seen in years. Brett's college buddies clapped him on the back. Some real estate guy kept calling him boss. He soaked it all in, acting humble while collecting praise like trophies. I kept my distance, made small talk, sipped water, smiled when necessary. My friend Denise texted halfway through the party. Rachel's settled and happy. We're watching that baking show she loves. All good here. I slipped the phone back in my clutch and scanned the room. At the center stood Brett, laughing, bragging, giving people handshakes like he was closing million-dollar deals. The projector near the dance floor rolled through old photos of us. Brett had uploaded them himself. Wedding shots, vacation selfies, his favorite one of us at the beach. I watched them play on a loop, knowing what would follow next. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. His dad tapped a fork against his glass and cleared his throat. Everyone, can I have your attention? People turned, drinks paused mid-sip. I just want to say something about my son, he said, his voice already thick with pride. Brett's always been a visionary. A doer. He doesn't just talk about building a future, he builds it. And tonight, seeing all of you here, I couldn't be prouder of the man he's become. The room broke into applause. Brett bowed his head, smiling like a politician caught in the spotlight. Then he took the mic. I wouldn't be the man I am without this woman right here, he said, gesturing to me. Emily's been my rock. My reason. 10 years with her have been the best of my life. He looked at me like he meant it. I held his gaze and smiled back. Still water, no ripples. I was holding it all behind the dam. He turned to the crowd again. So let's eat, drink, and celebrate what really matters. Family, loyalty, and love. The DJ kicked on soft background music, plates started coming out, glasses clinked, and Brett, my husband, leaned back in his chair, fingers laced behind his head, completely relaxed. He thought he was untouchable. I glanced over at the projector setup, then nodded at the tech guy we'd hired for the party. He gave a thumbs up from across the room. The slideshow still showed pictures of us at the Grand Canyon. I looked at Brett again, smiling that same smile I'd worn all night. He was about to find out what loyalty really looked like when you ripped it to pieces. I walked up to the mic like I was giving a thank you speech. That's what people expected. 10 years, husband and wife, celebration, smiles, laughter. I kept my voice steady. Before we get too drunk to remember anything, I said, glancing around the room, I wanted to say a few words about trust. The crowd hushed. A few people chuckled politely. Brett gave me that fake smug look he always wore when he thought I was being sentimental. I cleared my throat. Trust is a funny thing. We build it slowly, over years, piece by piece. It's the foundation of a marriage, a family, and sometimes, I said, looking straight at Brett, you don't realize how cracked that foundation is until it starts to collapse. The projector clicked. The photo of us at the beach faded. and the first bank statement appeared. Brett froze. I watched the confusion crawl across his face. He shot up from his seat. "Emily, what the hell are you doing?" I ignored him. "This," I said, turning to the crowd, "is a withdrawal from a medical care account I set up for my disabled sister. Brett pulled this out last October, said it was for therapy. It wasn't Click. Here's where the money actually went, a deposit into his personal account. Followed by $2,000 spent at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, people started shifting in their chairs. Click. This is a caregiver receipt he filed, completely fake. The caregiver doesn't exist. I called the agency, never heard of her. And this one? Click. She died last June. Brett started walking toward me, fast. I raised my hand without turning. Don't. His best friend Logan stepped out from the crowd and blocked him. "Man, maybe just sit down." Brett tried to push past, but two more co-workers moved in, shaking their heads. They didn't look angry. They looked embarrassed to even know him. Click. Here's a luxury watch, paid for with funds stolen from a healthcare account. And here, click. This is a list of shell companies tied to a fraudulent caregiver scheme. One of them is registered under Brett's name. Two others were involved in a Medicaid fraud investigation in Florida. This is his signature on the corporate documents. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the projector. Brett's dad stood up. "Emily," he said, voice shaking, "this can't be real." I turned to him. "You gave him 50 grand, didn't you?" He didn't answer. Didn't have to. His eyes dropped to the floor. Brett shouted over the crowd. "This is a setup. You're twisting everything." "You stole from a disabled woman," I said, not raising my voice. "My sister. You stole from your own family to fund a fantasy life. You lied to your father, your friends, me." He started moving again. One of his coworkers stepped in harder this time. "Sit down, Brett." I clicked the final slide, a side-by-side comparison. One image was the letterhead from ClearPath Holdings, LLC. The other was Vantage Wellness, one of the companies involved in the Florida scam. Same layout, same mailing address, same board signature. His. "This is what he does," I said. "He creates fake care services, hires unqualified people, and pockets the money while vulnerable people suffer. He's been doing it for years." I stepped away from the mic. Brett just stood there, surrounded by people who used to think he had integrity. His mouth moved, but nothing came out. His dad dropped into a chair like the weight of it all hit at once. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at Brett, calm as ever, and said, "I told you not to touch that fund." Then I walked back to my seat. The projector screen went black. The room stayed dead silent after the screen went black. You could hear a wine glass set down 3 tables over. Brett was still frozen near the projector, blinking like the light was too bright. No swagger left. No comebacks. Just the hollow look of a man who knew the bottom had finally dropped out. Then Daniel walked in. My lawyer was never flashy. Just a gray suit, black folder in hand. He moved straight through the stunned crowd like it was a normal Tuesday and stopped right in front of Brett. "Brett Carson," he said calmly, opening the folder. "You are hereby served with a petition for divorce and a civil suit for financial exploitation and fraud." Gasps rippled through the crowd. One of Brett's cousins half whispered, "Jesus." Daniel handed him the thick envelope. Brett didn't take it. It hit his chest and slid down to the floor. He looked like he might throw up. "Emily," he muttered, voice dry. "You're really doing this here?" I stayed seated. "I already did." He turned, desperate now. "Dad, say something." His father didn't move, just sat there, shoulders hunched, hands shaking on the tablecloth like he wasn't sure what part of his life was real anymore. And then, the ballroom doors opened. 2 men in dark suits stepped in, badges out, shoulders squared. One of them spoke, voice loud and clear. "Brett Carson, we're with the Office of Inspector General, Department of Health and Human Services. You're under arrest for fraud, theft of federal funds, and exploitation of a protected individual." That was it. No dramatic music, no yelling. Just those charges laid out in a voice that left no room for argument. They walked up and turned him around. Click. The cuffs snapped shut. The room, already quiet, went still like death. Nobody moved. Not even the waitstaff. I watched as they read him his rights. One of the agents picked up the dropped envelope and tucked it into Brett's jacket pocket. Neat. Clean. He looked back at me as they led him out. "Please," he said. That was all he managed. I didn't answer. He passed Logan, who turned away without a word. A coworker actually stepped back like Brett might contaminate him. Another friend whispered to his wife, shaking his head. And Brett's dad, the man who toasted his son just 30 minutes earlier, sat frozen, staring at the floor like he was watching everything he'd ever believed burn to ash. The doors closed behind them, and I exhaled for the first time in weeks. It wasn't joy, it wasn't revenge. It was colder than that, cleaner, like pulling a splinter that had been buried so deep you stopped feeling it until it finally came out and you bled. No one knew what to say. A few guests shuffled out quietly. Some hovered by the exit, stunned. The DJ turned the music off completely. Daniel walked over to me. "It's done." "Good," I said. "Thank you." He gave a small nod. "I'll handle everything else from here. Go be with your sister." I grabbed my clutch and left the table without looking back. I stepped outside without saying goodbye to anyone. The night air hit like a wave, cold, sharp, honest. No music, no lights, no fake toasts. Just pavement under my heels and the sound of my own breath finally steady again. I didn't look back. The valet offered to pull my car around, but I shook my head and started walking. Just needed to move, to get the party stink off my skin. I called Denise on the way home. "All good here," she said before I even asked. "Rachel's asleep." I gave her a bath, made her laugh a little. "She's safe, Em." I closed my eyes. "Thank you." "She asked about you." "I'll be there in 20. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark and quiet. I slipped off my shoes at the door and walked straight to Rachel's room. She was curled up under her favorite quilt, breathing soft and slow, one hand clutched around the corner like she always did as a kid. I sat beside her bed and just listened. I thought about everything I'd built to protect her, the work, the money, the time. And I thought about how easy it had been for Brett to tear through it with a smile and a password. But not anymore. His access was gone, his power stripped, his mask ripped off in front of every person who ever believed his lies. And me? I didn't feel broken. I felt cleared out, like the storm had passed and now I could finally start picking up the pieces without him making a mess behind me. The truth was, our marriage had been dead for a long time. He just didn't know I'd already buried it. Tonight wasn't revenge. It was closure. A door slammed shut with the full weight of justice behind it. I brushed Rachel's hair back and stood up. We had work ahead, new routines, court hearings, paperwork, all of it. But none of it scared me, because now it was just us, and no one was getting near her again. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. The house felt still, safe, honest. I took a deep breath, drained the glass, and opened my laptop. Time to move forward.